You wanted an offensive lineman? You've got an offensive lineman. We'll tell you about him on Locked On Baylor.
You are Locked On Baylor, your daily podcast on the Baylor Bears. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to another episode of Locked On Baylor. Welcome to game month. We are just 31 or 30, depending on how you do that counting, days away from Baylor football taking the field. They will take the field this month. Happy August to you. Welcome to another episode of Locked On Baylor, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it is your team every day. Thank you for making it your first listen today and every day. I'm your host, Cam Stewart of ESPN Central Texas and The Cam Show on Rogue Media Sports Network. We have got another flip in the Baylor football recruiting world, and it's one that you guys have been clamoring for, whether you know it or not. Plus, we're going to take a dive into my discussion with Drake Toll of Locked On Big 12 a little bit more. In terms of this Nicki Collen extension, when is it going to be time to stop comparing her to Kim Mulkey? And will I stop comparing her to Kim Mulkey in this show? We're going to find out later on. And we do have a date for when we will paint it anthracite. Oh, I know you guys are excited about that one too. All that and more coming up on this episode, starting with Baylor football recruiting news, as we so often do in the summer. We talked about all the skill position guys, right? The running backs, as good a crop maybe as they've ever brought in. Wide receivers, big play guys, even some now big play guys on the defensive side, with Caborin Morgan at defensive end and Caleb Burns at linebacker. And I've kind of hinted at this. A lot of you in the comments and on Twitter have said this. Cam, how great is it? How much does it even matter if you have great skill position guys, but no one to block for them up front? This was the biggest problem with the team last year. What good does it do that you have these great 4-star running backs if no one's going to pave a way for them to run? And I said, I agree. I wholeheartedly agree with that. And you can't understate enough how important that offensive line is, both now, which we'll look at in the next few days, this current state of the offensive line, and in the future. Doesn't matter how many great skill position guys you bring in. If the quarterback doesn't have time to get the receivers the ball, and if the running backs don't have lanes to run through, it doesn't matter. Right? Right. And I know there were some of you who were thinking, I don't want to hear about another skill position guy that commits until we hear about some guys in the trenches. Well, you got one this week. You got one. Matthew Parker of Flowood, Mississippi, Jackson Prep, class of 2025. So going into his senior year, a big kid, 6'7", 295 at the tackle position. You flipped him. You flipped him from the SEC, as a matter of fact. Flipped him from Vanderbilt. But that counts as a flip from the SEC. Matthew Parker committing to Baylor this week. I've said it before. I will say it again. For the sake of these episodes and for the sake of getting you guys to watch this, the most important recruits and flips and commits that I could talk about are the skill position guys. And it just so happens that those happen to be the highest graded guys that Baylor has got commits from this year. But you are making a football team here. You're making a football team, and we have seen what bad offensive line play looks like, and we have seen how quickly things can turn around when you get that unit solved. I'm talking about you, 2020 to 2021, and this is an important step in that direction. He did take an official visit with Baylor last month, just took an unofficial as part of that junior day they had over the weekend, and left saying, this is the place I'm going to go. This is where I'm headed. Flips to Baylor. Had offers from a lot of lower level schools, but also, like I said, Vanderbilt is where he flips his commitment from. Also had offers from Duke and Florida State and Colorado. So absolutely some interest there in the Power Five. I was surprised to see, though, no interest from Mississippi State. Take that for what it's worth, right? That's where Mason Miller was before his time at Tarleton. but no, and he did have, some interest places locally. He's a Mississippi kid, but no offer that came through from Mississippi State in all that time. So I know there's a bit of a connection there between, Miller having worked in Mississippi and Parker being from Mississippi, but no official offer was on the table. By the way, the two offensive line commits they've had since Mason Miller have come in have both been from the state of Mississippi. So, would be nice to. You can't get guys from other places, but as long as they are getting these guys, that's what I'm talking about. So again, the skill position thing is great, but you got to have these kinds of guys, these hog mollies up front, and guys who want to play here. Because I pull up this tweet from Grayson Grunhafer, who is the Sikkim 365 recruiting analyst. The quote from Matthew Parker: "You're blind if you can't see what's happening in Waco." Give me some more of that. That's what I'm talking about. I need guys who see the movement. Will Turboff of 247 Sports calls him one of the most physically imposing tackles in the 2025 recruiting class and says it was a major priority for Mason Miller since Miller came into the program in February. So this was a guy they targeted. They want the big uglies. That's nothing against your physical appearance, Matthew Parker. That's just a turn of phrase. And that's who they're looking for. That's who they targeted. They went out and got him. So in terms of building up a football team, we're headed in that direction. Okay? You got some of the big fish, the ones who will create the headlines, who will help you recruit, and also, no doubt, help you on the football field. But now you fill in the rest of the blanks. And Taz Williams, the receiving commit, says he's still got some work to do, getting some more people in the door. But this is a good step for the Bears to start bolstering that offensive line. I think that was obviously was a priority in the transfer portal. Again, we're going to talk about that very soon here on the show, how this year's outlook looks. But what I liked about it is you got some young guys in the transfer portal. It might not help all that much this year, but some young, highly touted guys, not the least of which being Colton Thomason, the former 4-star, was 3 years of eligibility at least left, who came from A&M. Those kinds of guys set you up for the future, along with the ones that you're recruiting in the class of 2025 and here in the next couple months into the class of 2026. We're going to talk about Nicki Collen, who will be the women's basketball coach, well, under contract anyway, until 2030, and when we can stop comparing her to the legend that she replaced. That's coming up on Locked On Baylor. But first, today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Just yesterday, Baylor football single game tickets dropped. So if you want to get out to McLean this year, the best place to do it is through the Gametime app. I just mentioned I was at Fenway, got great seats, day of the game. All thanks to Gametime. They are the easiest way to buy tickets. So if you want to go through the hassle and all the hidden fees, go right ahead. Be my guest. But if you don't like the hassle in buying tickets, then fellas and ladies, no place to go but Gametime. What I love about it is the all-in pricing. You see that price from page one, what you are going to pay. They've also got flash deals and zone deals going on throughout the week, and it is the best place for last-minute tickets. You can save up to 60% buying last minute for anything you want to buy a ticket for, and you get the views from your seats before you hit purchase, and you've got the lowest price guarantee, or Gametime is going to credit you 110% of the difference. So take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONCollege, LOCKEDONCOLLEGE, for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices, guaranteed.
Nicki Collen has signed an extension at Baylor. I know there are a whole lot of Kim Mulkey people that exist in the Baylor realm still that are like, well, if we only had Kim Mulkey back, we could still win games.
Who will be listening. Yeah.
At this point, if you are Baylor, what you gave away, I know it's crass to open the Nicki Collen extension conversation with Kim Mulkey, But that's who I was at Baylor for. That's who you were at Baylor for. That's the person that brings in all the hype out of this stuff. For what you have lost in a national championship that she won at LSU, you have gained in a human being with a gentle, loving soul and a whole lot less PR nightmare.
Yeah.
Does this solidify Nicki Collen as the head coach of the Baylor women's basketball program without Kim Mulkey's name still somehow attached to her?
Oh, good question.
Thank you.
My quick instinctive answer has to be no. And it's evidenced by the fact that we're opening this with talking about Kim Mulkey. I think the thing that gets Kim Mulkey out of the conversation is winning a national championship, which is a really high bar. And most coaches who have coached women's college basketball have not done it nor come close to doing it. Yeah. But I think when you have a select few programs.
Gino hasn't done it in a long time either.
That's true. Gino's lost his fastball, more at 11. There are a few programs where that becomes a standard. And, it's Baylor, obviously, UConn, Tennessee, South Carolina will be that absolutely when Dawn Staley leaves. That's just what you kind of have to deal with. So I think that, yes, Kim Mulkey will still be in the conversations. It will still be in the same breath when talking about Nicki Collen's career and whatever accomplishments comes along with that. And if and when she does win a national championship, that becomes, we really made out like bandits because we had a Hall of Fame coach and we lost her, and then we got another one.
Are Baylor fans excited by this?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think there is a big sect of what you kind of introduced with, though, of people who are never going to be happy not having Kim Mulkey. And we've seen it. I mean, the tip-off club with Baylor women's basketball, it's a mature crowd.
Yeah,
it certainly is. But they have been loyal, absolutely loyal to Baylor basketball for 20 plus years. And now, like LSU, like we know that. We've seen plenty of that. They are loyal to Kim, and they think that Baylor has railroaded her. And sure, go ahead. But I think a lot of the Baylor diehards are in on this Nicki Collen thing. I think a lot of them like both coaches. I think there are some that also knew the headache that came with Kim Mulkey and understood that this is a better look for the university as well as a good step for the basketball program. So I think there is excitement around this. And I think from what it proves to me is, like, I liked the way that Nicki Collen has been going at Baylor, especially really the way this last year ended, because, they were kind of in limbo in the middle of the season. And I think a lot of people were like, is this Nicki Collen experience working? And then they were, 2 baskets away basically from the Elite Eight. And you're thinking, this is a good ascension for this program, another ascension. And even when it's going well, though, when you're replacing a legend like Kim Mulkey, like, there's no guarantee that you're going to have the leash to build the program that you want to build. And what Baylor is showing is that, yes, you will have the leash to build this program the way you want it to. Oh, and also you've got this great new facility. You've got this awesome new arena. You are going to have the resources that Kim Mulkey did. And I think that's really important.
Tennessee struggled for a while without Pat Summitt.
Yeah.
I mean, anybody, you never want to be the one who replaces the legend. Kalen DeBoer is going to have a rough time at Alabama. And that's what Kim Mulkey was at Baylor. I mean, give her flowers for winning a lot of games. She just is the type of person who would win a national championship and then throw a party at Georgia's.
Yeah.
Win a championship at LSU and then come back to Waco, put a billboard in town, and then throw a party at the most popular restaurant in the city.
And, out on her way out once the men's team finally wins something.
Yes. With that note, she was doing it for her friends. Come on, man. She has a bunch of friends there and an ex-husband. With that note, is Baylor better off without Kim Mulkey and with Nicki Collen? That question is for you, the Baylor expert.
To be determined.
Ooh.
Am I allowed to do that?
That's kind of tough.
Like, look, if this program doesn't advance in the next 2 years, and again, that's an Elite Eight, that's a Final Four. Like, we're talking big time wins. If it doesn't advance to that level, then I don't know that we can say that. Now, as someone who follows the team pretty closely, I think they have damn good chance of doing that, of advancing to that level. I really do. I think they've got a really solid roster this year that could well be the favorites to win the Big 12. So that's the kind of standard we're talking about. I think it's overall a better thing for Baylor. I think, and the reason that I will use for why it's going to be a good thing down the line is I think Nicki Collen and the way she does things is going to have a better shelf life than the way Kim Mulkey does things, which could sound controversial. I think at the end of 4 or 5 years here, we're going to say, I think the rest of the country is going to say, yeah, I'd rather have Nicki Collen. The Kim Mulkey thing, it's getting old. We kind of had this discussion when that hit piece came out of like, but this is what Kim is. Like, for better or for worse, she should. I was like, she shouldn't even have to apologize for that. First off, it's her personal life, and like, call Kim whatever you want. She's not a phony, okay? She's not that at all. And so I think that is going to run dry. I think Nicki Collen's play style, or like her game style and her coaching style, are going to be a better fit for women's college basketball in 4 or 5 years than Kim Mulkey's is. And that's based on some faith and delusion, I think. But I think that's where we're headed. And they made it just as far this year.
Racking my brain a bit about people who, was it Calhoun at UConn that won that championship? Basketball?
He won 3 championships.
And then Kevin
Ollie won the 4th one, yeah.
So, and then now the new guy, Hurley.
Danny.
Yeah. There have been Chiswick to Malzahn at Auburn. There have been some programs that within the first 5 years of you take a championship coach and they're out the door are back at championship caliber. Amongst various sports.
Yeah, that Auburn one's a wild one. But yeah, that happens. I mean, Dean Smith to Bill Guthridge and Matt Doherty, that looked pretty bad. But within 6 years of Dean Smith retiring, they had Roy Williams.
Yeah,
at North Carolina. So you know what I mean? It happens. Sometimes you go through some lumps, but
and Roy Williams, Bill Self. I mean, there have been programs.
Yeah, Kansas.
That have
that's a big
retained really good success in this
Dave
whole deal.
Bliss to Scott Drew.
Yeah, it took. I don't know about Scott. It took him a while to get off the ground. Took him a bit. That's going to be a controversial one long term. Good for Nicki Collen. I just like the fact that she's a nice person. That's the universal thing. When I was still 6 months ago in the Baylor athletic department, you walk the halls. I would be drugged through the halls. Get out of here. Was Nicki Collen's really nice, and not in like a. I was on a podcast one time. I joined the Chargers podcast after JT Woods got drafted there, and they asked me, they're like, "So what can we look forward to in this kid?" It's not a cop out. It's not. I'm not. There's not usually a good way to start, but he's a really good kid. Usually,
first over player, baby.
Usually that means they suck, but that's not the case with JT Woods. He is good, and he's still in the NFL.
And can I say this to add to that point? Maybe this is a point towards women's college basketball still has room to grow, because I think a lot of people care about that she's a good person as well as a good coach. But a good person, a gooder person than a great coach that had left. And I don't think you would see that in a lot of men's basketball programs. I really don't think. Like, I'll give you an example. If Mark Pope stinks at Kentucky, he's a very nice guy. But they'll be like, well, the guy before was kind of a jerk, but he also, went to the Final Four a lot. They would. I think you would rather take that, the jerk, in most. In this scenario, in most men's college basketball programs.
Yeah. And Nicki Collen's a great ambassador for the school. Kim Mulkey was the ambassador for Baylor there for a bit, and that wasn't a very good thing.
Not for what Baylor's going for anyway.
She told you to smack people. And
I cheered for that, so I can't. I was in the building cheering for that. So
yeah, get him! Come on!
And I look. I'm still in a weird way a Kim fan. I am. It might not sound like it, but I am.
She's got some moxie. She's got some moxie.
Oh, she does. Passion, drive, patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and so much more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay's Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber. You're not burning cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. So keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions to apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to our U.S. customers. And once again, that is ebaymotors.com. The big unveiling of the spring was, of course, Baylor's new football uniforms. And, I'm like hit or miss on them. I've grown to like them a little bit better. We saw the green ones more in person at Big 12 Media Days. I wasn't there, but we saw the picture of what it actually looks like up close and personal. And I liked them a little more. That's how these things go, right? At first, you hate them. And then you see the players wearing them, and okay, you like them a little bit more. And then you see them on the field with them, and they get an iconic win and an iconic picture, and you're like, those are my uniforms. Okay, I'm sure there were people who didn't love the we call them the Bryles era uniforms, the ones that we all love and pine for now. But when those were introduced in 2013, I'm sure there were some detractors. And then you were putting up 70 points a game, and you beat Oklahoma on a Thursday night, one of the most electric atmospheres ever, and all of a sudden people really like them. And I'm sure that's going to be the case for a lot of you for these upcoming uniforms. But the one I think we all really liked was the anthracite uniforms. And those are the ones that that Dave Aranda liked before they even came out to play, before they said that that these were going to be unveiled. In fact, they did that like months before this was going to be unveiled. But I think we're all in on the anthracite. They've got the silhouetted bear paws again. They have got Baylor actually written across the chest. I think we're all in on those. And yesterday, we got the schedule of when we are actually going to see the team wear the anthracite uniforms. First and foremost, we're going to see them pretty early in the season. In fact, week 3, and that would be September the 14th against Air Force at McLean. There you go. We're going to have the anthracite there. And then the one that I think we were all hoping for, maybe not even expecting, but really hoping for, November 2nd, when they honor the 2013 and 2014 Big 12 champions and face their hated rivals from 100 miles to the north. When the Horned Frogs come down to Waco, they will be wearing the anthracite uniforms. The Bears will anyway. I don't think TCU will, but Baylor will be wearing the anthracite uniforms. So you get them early, you get them late, and also for arguably the biggest home game of the season. And as kind of a great fitting tribute to those teams who brought the black uniforms to us and had such a special place in our hearts. They are going to be on hand to see the Bears in anthracite and hopefully finally, please, God willing, beating TCU. It doesn't happen often. I am so excited for that. First thing I did was go and check. Yes, that game against Air Force is a night game. Thank God, because that could have been, it would have been inhumane to play that game at 2:30 in Waco in the middle of September and have the players wearing basically all black uniforms. But thankfully, that is a 7:30 kickoff. So you'll get them both night games. I'm guessing that November 2nd one will be a night game too, but I don't think we have an official time on that one yet. So that is going to be obviously a raucous atmosphere in November. I'm hoping we can bring that kind of energy to that second home game against Air Force, which is special ops night. Interesting to do that against Air Force. Cool or interesting. But that's where we're going to see the anthracite uniforms. And one other note that I forgot to bring up yesterday, and I apologize to that, but how about Baylor basketball adding a transfer very late in the game? It's a grad transfer, Davidson Hubbard. He put out a little graphic. He had the old Baylor uniform on from 6 or 7 years ago up there, but Davison Hubbard comes at you, a 6'5" forward, originally from Charlotte, North Carolina, and played 4 years at Hampton-Sydney College. Please comment down below if you have ever heard of Hampton-Sydney College. I have. My uncle went there, very weirdly. It's in Virginia, if I'm not mistaken. It is Division III. So he played 4 years of Division III basketball, averaged just under 15 points a game last year, just under 13 for his career. Playing forward at 6'5". That's not usually what happens in the Big 12, but then again, we're going to see some serious center minutes from 6'9" Norchad Omier. So welcome aboard, Davidson Hubbard. This is a big jump, man, but you obviously have a lot of college basketball experience under your belt. I have to imagine Hampton-Sydney's a good school. He probably got a nice degree and was working a nice little job this summer and said, you know what, I can still play basketball. And Scott Drew is offering me a spot. And now he comes to Waco to join the Bears and at least giving some depth for this Bears team. And what a way to close out your college career. Like, I could have done a whole segment on this just for this part right here. Like, 4 years of Division III. And look, that's not an easy living. You're really doing it for the love of the game. You're not getting big time NIL deals. You've got a crazy schedule like any athlete would have with their classes and trying to get internships and things like that. You're trying to get every ounce of basketball left out of you, and you feel like you've done it. You've got the senior day, you've got the Hampton-Sydney jersey framed, and you're probably working. And here, lo and behold, you have a chance to play for a team that could make a Final Four run in Division I this year. What a heck of a way to close out your basketball career. So welcome aboard, Davison Hubbard. Hopefully you can pull a Mark Patterson, man. Let's get you some baskets in the Final Four. How about it? Let's have you dribble out the clock to win a national championship like Patterson did. That's the standard now for these guys that come in that are rec league heroes or D3 heroes that are probably coming on as walk-ons. So I'm gonna go ahead and say that's probably the last addition that Baylor makes to the basketball roster. They've been together for about a month now. You don't usually see them late in July making commitments like that. This obviously kind of a different circumstance with the guy coming from Division III as a grad transfer. But yeah, let me know if you've heard of Hampton-Sydney. Drop that down in the comments below. Let's get them some pub. Let me know what you think about the Kim Mulkey comparison for Nicki Collen and when that is going to stop, what that is going to take, whether you've stopped already. Drop that down in the comments below as well. And how much more do you need to see recruiting wise or transfer portal wise in terms of the offensive line? Obviously, it's set for this year, but going forward, would you rather see them just treat that position like a portal position, like I think they're going to do with quarterback eventually? Or do you think there's still room for those blue chip guys that are coming out of high school? Drop that down in the comments below. Thank you so much for making it your first listen today and every day. We are available on YouTube, so be sure to like and subscribe, leave a comment, or wherever you get your podcasts. You can find us sharing the show on Facebook and on Twitter. That's at Locked On Baylor on Twitter. And thank you again for making it your first listen today and every day. All you everydayers out there, make Baylor, Locked On Baylor, your first listen. Make Locked On Big 12 your second listen. Thank you to Drake for having me on the show once again. We'll see you tomorrow on your favorite program, Locked On Baylor.